On a day like today, January 29th, he didn't save the world for honor. He didn't do it for justice. He did it because no one else had the courage or the attitude. This isn't just a video game. It's the story of how Duke Nukem 3D changed shooters forever, and why nothing like it was ever repeated. In the mid-1990s, video games were still learning how to speak. Shooters existed, yes, but they were silent, abstract, almost without identity. Then Duke Nukem 3D appeared. A game that didn't just shoot, it mocked, broke the fourth wall, provoked, exaggerated, and had fun doing it. While other heroes were generic soldiers or anonymous figures, Duke had a voice. He had an ego. He had personality. And for the first time, the player wasn't just controlling a weapon. They were controlling a character who was aware of himself. But how did we get there? Duke Nukem wasn't born an icon. He started as a platforming character, almost cartoonish, in the early games of the series. But Duke Nukem 3D was the definitive mutation. The world was no longer an abstract maze. It was a living city. Theaters, public bathrooms, bars, destroyed streets. Everything was interactive. Everything reacted. You could look into mirrors, activate machines, break environments, listen to conversations. Do you realize how revolutionary that was? While other games told you move forward, Duke Nukem 3D told you explore, play, experiment. And in the middle of that world, aliens invading Earth. Not to conquer it, but to humiliate humanity. And that's where Duke steps in, alone, sarcastic, indestructible. Every line he delivered was a provocation. Every enemy defeated, one more insult. But that attitude, was it just cheap humor? Or did it hide something deeper? Duke Nukem 3D wasn't just a shooter, it was a satire of the 80s and 90s action hero. Everything was exaggerated on purpose. The muscles, the weapons, the one-liners. It was a parody fully aware of itself. While other games wanted to be serious, Duke laughed at the genre without ever disrespecting it. And that's the key. The game understood something many later forgot, that fun and depth are not opposites. Because beneath the humor, Duke Nukem 3D introduced ideas we take for granted. Non-linear levels, environments with real-world logic, freedom in how you solve situations, a protagonist with personality. It was a turning point. After Duke, shooters could no longer be just corridors full of enemies. But if it was so influential, why did it disappear? Duke's problem was trying to outdo himself. Duke Nukem Forever became an eternal promise, endless development, a symbol of what happens when ambition loses direction. And when it finally arrived, the world had already changed. The humor wasn't the same. The audience wasn't looking for the same things. The industry no longer forgave mistakes. But that didn't erase the legacy. Duke Nukem 3D had already won. It influenced generations of developers, inspired modern level design, proved that a video game could have a strong identity, its own voice and attitude. And above all, it proved that video games could dare to be bold. Today, Duke Nukem 3D is still played, still analyzed, still remembered. Not out of cheap nostalgia, but because it was a game that understood its time and pushed it forward. It was irreverent, it was excessive, it was imperfect, but it was authentic. And in an industry that often plays it safe, that makes it something rare, something valuable. Maybe Duke doesn't fit into today's world. Maybe his style would never be repeated. But that doesn't mean he didn't leave a lesson behind.
Because Duke Nukem 3D reminds us of something essential. Video games shouldn't just be correct, they should be memorable. Now, tell me, do you think there's a game today with as much personality as Duke Nukem 3D? Or have we lost the willingness to take risks along the way? If this trip into the past reminded you of something, leave a like. If you enjoy stories about the games that defined an era, subscribe. And tell me in the comments, what was your first memory with Duke Nukem?